These are the 10 best combos in Secrets of Strixhaven Draft. These commons and uncommons synergize really well together, so be on the lookout. First up is the combo between Root Manipulation and Pest Mascot. Root Manipulation is 3 black-green for a sorcery that says, until end of turn, creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Menace, and whenever this creature attacks, you gain 1 life. Pest Mascot is 1 black-green for a 2/3 trample that says whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Now, Root Manipulation is often the spell you're hoping to cast as like your last spell of the game, where you play it, buff up your entire board state, attack with everything, and hopefully swing in for the win. So the life gain portion of that card oftentimes doesn't come up that much unless you have a card like Pest Mascot to combo with it, where all of a sudden every single creature you're attacking with not only is getting +2/+2 and Menace, but they're also going to be adding +1/+1 counters to your Pest Mascot, which can get out of hand in a hurry. If you have even just a single Pest Mascot into play and you attack with 4 creatures, that's 4 extra counters for your Pest Mascot, which is really, really strong. And 4 creatures with Root Manipulation is kind of like the dream scenario. Even 3 creatures, if you have a Pest Mascot, that can be an extra 3 points of damage that maybe your opponent is going to then have to deal with, or just helps the Pest Mascot survive the double block because of the Menace. Overall, it's the sort of thing where Root Manipulation is often the sort of card that I don't love playing on its own without synergies to go with it, because you can't really use it if you're behind, and even though you want to be on the front foot with your black-green decks, sometimes you'll just draw this card in like a board state where it's not going to be very good. But when you have other cards that synergize with it, like Pest Mascot, the card gets a little bit better, and then it can be a card worth including in your deck. Next is the combo between Bogwater Lumerette and Poisoner's Apprentice. We're sticking with the Witherbloom combos for now. It's Bogwater Lumerette is black-green for a 2/2 that says whenever this creature or another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life. And then Poisoner's Apprentice is 2 and a black for a 2/2 with Infusion. When this creature enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -4/-4 until end of turn if you gained life this turn. So sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to gain life to make the Poisoner's Apprentice work, but if you play Bogwater Lumerette, when you play the Poisoner's Apprentice, you'll gain the life and be able to gain that life in before the Poisoner's Apprentice trigger will resolve, and so you'll be able to make the -4/-4 happen with just having your Bogwater Lumerette into Poisoner's Apprentice synergy. And so that's a pretty nice thing to be aware of with your infusion cards, is Bogwater Lumerette is a really strong enabler for them. And then finally, the combo between Bogwater Lumerette and Pest Mascot. I'm not including this as one of the 10. This is just like a bonus combo, but kind of the dream team here. When you play Bogwater Lumerette on turn 2, Pest Mascot on turn 3, this is kind of mashing the previous couple combos together, but the Pest Mascot just grows, and then any creature you play, you gain the life the Pest Mascot grows. This is kind of like the dream team for those Witherbloom decks. Moving on to a different color combination, the combo between Micah, Reader of Ruins, and Sonar, Unfinished Genius in your blue-red decks. Micah, Reader of Ruins is 3 and a red for a 4/4. It's got Ward, pay 3 life, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. And then Sonar, Unfinished Genius is blue-red for an 0/4, enters prepared, and then it has tap, create a treasure token, activate only if you've cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, and then it has Wild Idea, which is its prepared spell for 3 blue-red. You can search your library for an instant or sorcery card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Basically, the way this combo works is you can have Micah in play and Sonar in play, cast an instant or sorcery, and while that's on the stack, tap the Sonar to make a treasure token, and then you can resolve Micah's ability, sacrifice the treasure token you just got from the Sonar, and basically copy every single instant or sorcery you have for the rest of the game, which is a really powerful synergy because you're just doubling up on your spells, and it's going to pretty much end the game in a hurry if you have just any number of instants and sorcery. So definitely a good one to be aware of. Micah, not the sort of card that I generally play by itself because there's not that many treasure makers or artifacts in general to sacrifice. There are a few. But when you have Sonar in your deck, or maybe you're lucky enough to have a couple of Sonars, being aware of this sort of synergy, this sort of combination you can assemble to win the games is really, really nice. And so Micah can definitely get a little bit of a boost and maybe make your deck when he otherwise wouldn't. Next is the combo between Inkling Mascot and Killian's Confidence. Inkling Mascot is white-black for a 2/2. It has Repartee. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature, this creature gains flying until end of turn Surveil 1. And so you want to consistently be able to trigger this to not only sculpt your draws with the Surveil 1, but turn it into a 2/2 flyer that's going to be able to hopefully attack your opponent and deal a bunch of damage. Killian's Confidence is white-black for a sorcery that says target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, draw a card. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may pay white-black hybrid. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. So if you have Inkling Mascot in play, Killian's Confidence works really well with it because it's a consistent way to trigger that Repartee and give it flying and the Surveil 1. And then Killian's Confidence likes Inkling Mascot because the flying lets the Inkling Mascot connect so that you can then get that Killian's Confidence back. So assembling this sort of thing in the mid game can make your opponent have to deal with your Inkling Mascot when they might want to save their removal spells for something that isn't one of your 2-drops or something of that nature, because this combination can quickly take over the game. So Killian's Confidence, great with any repartee card, but generally especially good with the Inkling Mascot because of that evasion that the Inkling Mascot will gain from those consistent repartees to help it hit and get the Killian's Confidence back. Next up is the combination of Pull from the Grave and Zealous Lorecaster. You might be thinking a black-red combo, but black-red isn't one of the supported color combinations, but you do often end up in these multicolored brews, these kind of decks that play like 4 or sometimes even 5 colors, and this sort of thing can definitely come up, especially if you need some extra inevitability. Pull from the Grave is 2 and a black for a sorcery that says return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, you gain 2 life. And Zealous Lorecaster is 5 and a red for a 4/4 that says when this creature enters, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So if you have these 2 cards, let's say you have the Pull from your grave in your graveyard, you play Zealous Lorecaster, get the Pull from the grave back from your graveyard, and then when Zealous Lorecaster dies, you can pull from the grave back the Zealous Lorecaster plus another creature, and then you can Zealous Lorecaster to get back Pull from the grave once again. Every time you do this loop, you end up 1 creature, and so if you do need some extra inevitability in your late game decks, and you're already kind of planning on playing these colors, keep an eye out for this sort of combination to be a late game value engine. Before I get to the rest of the combos, I do want to shout out the fact that I am going to be doing a group coaching session to help you get better at Secrets of Strixhaven. It's going to be happening on Sunday, May 17th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is noon New York time, if that helps you think about it, depending on your time zone. And I'll be going through a lot of things to help you get better at the draft format for a full hour, and then there's going to be a bonus half hour at the end for any extra questions that you might have that you weren't able to get answered during the first hour. And so there's going to be the bonus Q&A, but also answering questions during the hour, of course. And it's going to be a real a good way to help you get better at the format and maybe prepare for any other events you have coming up in the format. Back to the combos, though. The combo between Summoned Dromedary and Charging Strife Knight. Summoned Dromedary is 3 and a white for a 4/3 Vigilance. With 1 and a white, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Activate only as a sorcery. And then Charging Strife Knight is 2 and a red for a 3/3 haste that has tap, discard a card, draw a card. So the Dromedary comes back from your graveyard to your hand if it dies or if it just finds its way into your graveyard. And the Charging Strife Knight can consistently discard it. So basically, with the 2 of these combined, you can just discard the Summoned Dromedary, pay 2 mana, bring it back to your hand, and then you're basically not going down a card with the Charging Strife Knight, so you're turning that Rummage ability into a card draw ability, just straight up card advantage, which is a really nice thing to have in these mid-game board stalls that you might find yourself in with your red-white deck, especially if you're playing a more mid-rangey version. Next up is the combo between a Ajani's Response and Delete Interceptor. Both good cards on their own, but this is a combo I did want to highlight because it can definitely come up. Ajani's Response is 4 and a white for an instant. This spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a tapped creature. Destroy target tapped creature. Oh, no, not destroy target tapped creature. Destroy target creature. So it costs only 2 mana if you're targeting a tapped creature, but sometimes your opponent's creatures aren't going to become tapped. If you're on the front foot, your opponent will be less likely to attack you with your creatures, less likely to tap their creatures as a result, and so you'll have to pay the full 5 for it. Elite Interceptor, though, is 1 white mana for a 1/2. It enters prepared, and Rejoinder is 1 and a white for a sorcery. You may tap or untap target creature and draw a card. So if you use the Rejoinder spell to tap a creature and then Ajani's Response, you're going to get a mana discount on the overall effect because you're going to spend 2 mana to tap it and 2 mana to cast Ajani's Response instead of the full 5 mana to cast Ajani's Response. And so that little sort of mana discount can be a very effective use of getting your removal spell for permanently removing a threat for 1 mana less, especially because you might be like on the aggressive and on the beat down path and trying to finish off your opponent really quickly, and being able to kill their creature a turn earlier is really, really useful in those scenarios. And so definitely keep an eye out for these sort of tap effects to tap your opponent's creatures to make Ajani's Response cost less. Next is the combo between Aberrant Mana Worm and Procrastinate. There are sometimes blue-green tempo decks that you can play, and this is the sort of combo you should keep an eye out for in those decks. Aberrant Mana Worm is 3 and a green for a 2/5 trample. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. And then Procrastinate is X blue for a sorcery, tap target creature, put twice X stun counters on it. Neither of these cards are great on their own, but if you are planning on playing one, the other does get better, because if you have Aberrant Mana Worm in play, and you play Procrastinate for like X equals 7 because you're in the extreme late game, all of a sudden your Aberrant Mana Worm is getting +8/+0, which is just basically turning Procrastinate into not only a removal spell for a long time, because it's going to be stunning the creature for basically forever, but also buffing up your Aberrant Mana Worm almost like a fireball effect. And so that's the sort of thing where if you are already planning on playing the Mana Worm, putting a Procrastinate in your deck does become that much more effective, and it turns a card that's maybe mediocre into a card that's kind of solid and maybe one you're okay playing. Next, we're going to be looking at some bonus sheet cards because these do come up quite frequently because they are the uncommon bonus sheet cards, and so I wanted to mention a couple of them. Monstrous Rage is an instant that gives target creature +2/+0 until end of turn, and you create a monster roll token attached to it. So basically it's +3/+1 and trample, but the +1/+1 and trample part sticks around. And then Quillblade Laureate is 1 and a white for a 1/1 with double strike. It enters prepared, and then it has twofold intent as its prepared spell to give a creature +1/+0 and double strike until end of turn. The combination of double strike and Monstrous Rage is really, really effective. If you basically are going to give a creature +4/+1 and double strike until end of turn, if you can play a twofold intent on a creature and then Monstrous Rage it, that's going to end the game a lot of the time. If you say have like a 3/3 creature that you're doing this with, then all of a sudden your 3/3 creature is turning into a 4/3 double strike and then a 7/4 double strike that just hits for 14, and your opponent might not play around Monstrous Rage as much as they would play around some of the other combat tricks in the set because it is on the bonus sheet, even though it still will come up quite frequently. So if you have a Monstrous Rage, Quillblade Laureate, already a good card, it gets even better, and this little synergy can end the game out of nowhere. The next combo I wanted to talk about, and the final one on this list, is Helping Hand and Practiced Scrollsmith. So Helping Hand is a single white mana, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and then Practiced Scrollsmith is red-white hybrid, white for a 3/2 first strike. This says when this creature enters, exile target non-creature, non-land card from your graveyard. Until the end of your next turn, you may cast that card. Practice Scrollsmith is a fantastic card that you're going to want to play in any red-white deck and take very highly. Helping Hand is a card that you might not always be interested in playing, but once you have a Practice Scrollsmith, it gets so much better because any situation where your Practice Scrollsmith has already died, then you play Helping Hand, get back the Scrollsmith, and then Scrollsmith can exile the Helping Hand from your graveyard to immediately get back something else. So even if you didn't necessarily want to get the Scrollsmith, maybe there was another 3-drop you wanted, or maybe you just wanted to have even if there was another 3-drop you wanted, you can get back the Scrollsmith and then get back the Helping Hand anyway and kind of chain it together. And if you have multiple Scrollsmiths, you can sometimes do these crazy turns where you use Helping Hand, get back one Scrollsmith, use that Scrollsmith to exile Helping Hand, play that, get back another Scrollsmith. So if you are lucky enough to get multiple Scrollsmiths, that's a really nice synergy to be aware of. And also just Helping Hand backing back a Scrollsmith and then using that to cast another spell is also a pretty good use of Helping Hand. It gets really good synergy with the Scrollsmith, but especially because a lot of the time these cards, like a Scrollsmith, would exile the card after you've cast it from your graveyard. This is a good one to know about because the Helping Hand will go back to your graveyard after you've cast it with the Scrollsmith, which is not something that's maybe always going to happen with these sorts of effects, but it does with this one. It does make Helping Hand a really good synergy piece with the Practice Scrollsmith. That's going to do it for this one, though. I hope you enjoyed it. If you made it to the end, leave #teamwork in the comment section down below because these cards teaming up can help you win more games and do some serious work. That's going to do it for this one, though. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time.